So it's January 2023 and I bet many of you have set some New Year's resolutions. And some of these resolutions probably are to either work out more or start working out in the first place. And whether you are a seasoned gym goer or a complete beginner, if you want to build muscle mass and gain strength, then this video is the right one for you, because I'll teach you how to build muscle and gain strength, and I'll go over all training principles that you need to know from start to the end. And as a side note, if you want to lose fat, then this video is also the right one for you, because building muscle and lifting weights can also help you achieve fat loss. But more on that later. So, how do you build muscle? Let's have a look. To start things off, I first want to look how muscle actually grows and what triggers muscle growth in the first place, because that will be important to know later on when we discuss what exactly you should do. So muscle growth is also called muscle hypertrophy, and that kind of tells you already how muscles grow. Instead of making new muscle fibers, the existing muscle fibers you already have get bigger in size. And these muscle fibers get bigger through muscle protein synthesis, meaning the making of new muscle proteins. And if muscle protein synthesis is bigger than muscle protein breakdown, then you build muscle mass. So what triggers muscle protein synthesis then? It was long believed that there are three factors contributing to muscle hypertrophy: muscle damage, metabolic stress, and mechanical tension. Muscle damage is kind of self-explanatory what it is. It is damage to your muscle fibers that needs to get repaired. And it was believed to contribute to muscle growth because there is some muscle damage after each workout. However, newer research kind of questioned the role of muscle damage, and some studies even showed that if there is too much muscle damage, then all muscle protein synthesis is used to repair the muscle tissue instead of adding size to your muscle. Metabolic stress, on the other hand, is the buildup of metabolites in your muscle tissue when you work out, such as lactic acid. And this is also the reason why your muscles start to burn when you do high rep sets. However, it is really difficult to say how much metabolic stress actually contributes to muscle growth, since it is always accompanied with the next factor, mechanical tension. Mechanical tension basically means that your muscle fibers are stretched under load. So they are stretched against some sort of resistance. And you create a lot of mechanical tension by training hard. So training intensity is one of the most important factors when it comes to muscle growth. There is the debate if you need to train to failure or if it's okay not to go to failure. And in volume-matched studies, they showed that there is no difference in training to absolute muscle failure and training not to failure, given that you still train sufficiently close to failure. And in practical terms, that means that you should leave no more than 3 to 4 reps in the tank at the end of each set. And if you do that, you're training sufficiently hard and you will build muscle mass. The only caveat is that most people are notoriously bad at guessing how many reps they still have left in the tank. That's why I recommend pushing slightly more towards muscle failure, just to be on the safe side. But if you're a complete beginner, then I would recommend that you train a little bit lighter first, get familiar with all the exercises, get to know the equipment, and learn good technique first. And after a few weeks or months of training, then you can start adding more weight and training more closely to failure. On a note of intensity, if you stick to the same weight for the same number of reps for a very long time, it will probably become easier. And this is actually a good thing, because it means that your body is adapting and you're gaining strength and probably also gaining some muscle mass. But to further increase your muscle and strength gains, you need to increase the intensity again. And this is called progressive overload, doing a little bit more than last time. And there are multiple forms of progressive overload, such as adding more weight, adding more reps, doing another set, or improving your technique and becoming more efficient with your movements. And as a beginner, once you have good technique and you start adding weight, you can probably increase the weight by around 2.5% to 5% every time you work out. And as you get more advanced, you can't really do that anymore. And then it's time to either increase the number of reps or sets before you can add more weight. Talking about sets and reps, how many should you do? A set is the number of repetitions that you do one after another without any break in between. For example, when you do 2 sets of 10, then you do 10 reps of a certain exercise, and that is your first set. Then you take a break of a couple of minutes before you do another 10 reps of the same exercise, and that's then your second set. And to build muscle, the scientific literature recommends between 10 and 20 sets per body part per week. But how about the number of reps per set? The recommendations you hear everywhere are the following: 1 to 5 reps if you want to gain strength, 6 to 12 reps if you want to build muscle mass, and 15 plus reps if you want to build muscular endurance. And these rep ranges are actually pretty accurate, with one small exception. Because muscle growth is actually possible in a much larger rep range, specifically from about 5 to 30 reps. The 6 to 12 or 6 to 15 recommendation is just more practical and time efficient. But it also is actually good news, because if you picked a weight that is too light for you and you've reached 15 reps easily, then you can just add more reps until you reach failure, and you can still build muscle mass that way. And then just pick a heavier weight for your next set. But let's move on to the next training variable, which is frequency, or the number of times you train a specific body part per week. The good news is, in theory, it really doesn't matter how often you train per week, as long as you get enough volume in to support your goal, which is probably muscle growth. But in practice, spreading sets for muscle groups over several workouts has some benefits. First, you have more time during your workout to train other muscle groups as well. So you don't have one workout just training your quads and then the next one just training your hamstrings, for example. And usually when you train more often, it allows you to do more volume, so more sets overall for a given muscle group. And of course, you can distribute your sets and workouts and exercises however you like. But here are some of the popular and effective workout splits that you might want to try. If you have 2 or 3 days available to train, then you could go with a full body split. If you have 4 days available, then the most popular split is probably the upper-lower split, where you train upper body twice a week and lower body twice a week. With 5 days, the most popular split is the so-called bro split, and although it's called that way, it's actually a good split to build muscle mass. And you train chest, back, shoulders, legs and abs, and biceps and tricep on these 5 days. And if you have 6 days available, then the most popular option is probably the push-pull leg split. So you train your push muscles, so chest, shoulders, triceps on 2 days per week. Then you train your pull muscles, so your upper back and biceps, also twice a week. And then you train legs twice a week as well. But which split you choose really depends on how much time you actually have available to train, because any of these splits will result in muscle growth if you stick to it and are consistent with it. But speaking of time, how long should you rest between sets? When your goal is building muscle mass, then I would recommend between 1 and 3 minutes between sets. If you want to build strength, you can increase your rest times up to 5 minutes. And if you want to improve your muscular endurance, you can also go below 1 minute and maybe even progressively shorten your rest times. But rest time also depends on the type of exercise you do. Generally speaking, for compound exercises, you want to rest a little bit longer, while you probably need shorter rest for isolation exercises. Speaking of compound versus isolation exercises, what are they? A compound exercise is also called a multi-joint exercise because you involve many muscles at the same time. Examples include squats, bench press, RDLs, or lat pull downs. And these exercises are usually very time efficient because you train multiple muscles at the same time. However, they're also a little bit more difficult to learn with proper technique, and you need longer rest periods between sets, but they are great for overall strength and muscle development, and I would include them in every workout program. On the other hand, isolation exercises train only one muscle at a time. Examples include biceps curls or crunches or quad extensions. The downside of isolation exercises is that you need multiple exercises to hit multiple muscle groups, whereas you could hit the same muscles with just one exercise doing a compound movement. However, they are more targeted, so if you really want to build that biceps, then you should do isolation exercises for your biceps. When talking about different types of exercises, you can also choose between free weight exercises and machine-based exercises. Free weight exercises are done either with dumbbells or with barbells. The advantage really is that you involve many stabilizing muscles that you would otherwise not train, and it also improves your coordination and balance. However, they are also slightly more difficult to do, but in my opinion, the payoff is worth it. On the other hand, machine exercises with machines or cables are a bit more guided. That means they are easier to learn, and usually you can go a little bit heavier with those because you don't need all those stabilizing muscles. And if you're a complete beginner, these are a great way to build up the courage and the strength for free weight exercises. And all of these exercise types are equally effective for building muscle mass. So it really comes down to personal preference which one you choose. In terms of structuring the exercises within your workout, I would recommend you do free weight compound exercises first in your workout because they are the most technically and physically demanding exercises. Then I'd move on to machine compound exercises before doing any isolation exercise. And personally, I would recommend between 5 and 7 exercises per workout, so about 1 or 2 in each of these categories. You might ask, how often should I change exercises? Ideally, you want to keep the same exercises for as long as possible, and especially as a beginner, because that means you can learn and perfect the technique of each exercise. Plus, for muscle growth, you need progressive overload, and in order to do that, you need to do the same exercises over and over again. And if you really want to change exercises frequently, then I would recommend sticking with the same compound exercises for 6 to 8 weeks and keep the same isolation exercises for around 4 weeks. Okay, now you know almost everything from which exercises to pick, how many sets, how many reps, how long you should rest between sets, etc. The only thing left in terms of workout is exercise tempo, or how fast or slow you should perform your exercises. And from what we currently know, it doesn't really matter. Any rep speed between half a second and 8 seconds results in the same amount of muscle growth. I recommend you pick a rep speed that you're comfortable with and that you can do the exercise with proper technique, so you're always in control of the weight. But training ideally is only one part of the equation when you want to build muscle mass. The other part is really nutrition. And for building muscle mass, you want to eat at maintenance calories or even in a slight surplus of around 10 to 20%. You also should consume enough protein, between 1.6 and 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. For example, when you weigh 80 kilograms, then you should aim for 128 to 176 grams of protein per day to fall into that sweet spot. When you eat your protein, and what kind of protein that is really doesn't matter as long as you eat enough of it, so just eat it. And no, too much protein is not harmful. As long as you're healthy, your kidneys and your body will deal with it just fine. For weight loss, as an advanced lifter, you should probably eat in a slight caloric deficit of around 10 to 15%. As a complete beginner, you are in the perfect situation because you should be able to do a body recomposition, or recomp for short, meaning that you can build muscle mass and lose fat at the same time. For that, it's usually okay to eat at maintenance calories, but you can also eat in a slight caloric deficit if you want. In terms of protein, when you are in a caloric deficit, you should actually increase your protein intake, and science recommends between 2.3 and 3.1 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day to effectively prevent muscle loss. Okay, but that was it. everything that you need to know about building muscle mass and gaining strength. It's really not more complicated than that, and this applies both to complete beginners as well as advanced lifters. One final remark though, especially for those who are just starting out, is that losing weight or building muscle mass is a slow process. So it will not happen overnight, it will not happen in the matter of a few weeks, but it will take months and even years. And I think this is something that many fitness influencers don't tell you enough, and they set the wrong expectations, which is then why many people quit the gym after some time because they don't see any results. And that's a shame. So don't be discouraged if you don't see results immediately. It takes some time and there's nothing wrong with you. So to track progress, I recommend taking some progress pictures, maybe once a month, that you can then compare over time. And another good way to track your progress is actually to track your strength, because if you get stronger, the workout is working and you are also gaining muscle mass on the side, even though you might not notice it at the moment. Okay, but that was it now for real. If you want to know more about some of the training variables, then I'll link a playlist up here that contains a bit of a more in-depth discussion of each of these factors. And of course, if you have more questions, then you can also leave it down in the comments below. I'm always happy to help out. But on your way down there, please leave me a like and subscribe if you found this video useful, and I'm gonna see you in the next one. Bye!